Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
everybody.
Hello.
Hey. Mac, how to do it? Let's see if your mic's working.
All right. Hypothetically, maybe you can hear me. If you were here last time, you might know that that's a problem. But we'll find out quick if it's not. Anyway, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're doing a review show for the GT we ran here in Austin a week ago, is it now? Week and 2 days.
Yeah, but not week in a few days, yeah.
Yes. So we threw out a questionnaire to get some feedback, and we'll go over basically what we saw at the event, what we thought happened, what we thought worked, what we thought didn't, and we'll mix in what the rest of y'all thought too. The big ticket takeaway is that we're real happy with how things went, but we identified, what can we do next time that would make it even better. So just going through who we've got here. Hi, I'm Matt. We've got Jeff, the harrower, down there in the bottom left. And then we've got Isaac in the top right.
Our bookie grot.
Yes.
Indeed.
So, all right. Jeff, you are the official tournament organizer, and it's your event. What's your biggest takeaway as the guy who had to sign off on everything at the end?
I mean, overall, I definitely think it worked out really well. I mean, through the survey, everything was really positive. Everybody said they're coming back. Everybody said they had a good time. I was worried about having like a smaller venue. Turned out not to be that much of an issue. But yeah, I think overall went really well. The first, 30 minutes setting up and stuff is crazy. Trying to do it day of the event is not easy. But after that, I mean, it was a smooth ride. Like, it was probably the simplest and easiest GT we've ran. Everybody was just hanging out for the most part.
Yeah, a lot of credit for that goes to a lot of the people who put in the work behind the scenes. I know Jeff's the TO at the end of the day, but wouldn't have been the event we did without Andrew cooking, Megan and Spencer helping set things up, Spencer running tech for the whole thing, Jeff G helping out with keeping things organized, help. And Adam also was there. We had Isaac on Bookcrot. I lose track of how many people we had. Eli was helping out. Joe was helping out. Chad and Lexi were grabbing stuff and bringing extra mats. And of course, there's the whole cast of people who helped let us use their terrain for the event so that we could actually have an event there instead of the handful of tables that we have with just our group ourselves. So first and foremost, thank you everyone who made this work.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a village, and we had an amazing crew. Definitely couldn't have done it without everybody. Appreciate everybody so much. Made it super simple. And Adam, can't forget about Adam.
I thought I listed Adam. I might not have misled Adam. But yes, I lost track of how many people we had. Like I said, we had a hell of a cast on the side there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Isaac, you took charge of running the TEEF mini games. You and I believe Brian were in charge of designing it for the most part, and kind of iterating off of last year's implementation. The big thing is that last year gambling TEEF had been a kind of a side thing that some people caught in the pack, some people didn't. This year you made it front and center. What was your takeaway from running that?
A lot of people really enjoyed it. I mean, when I would come to the table, I'd be like, "Hey, time to bet," and people would immediately stop what they're doing, pick up the phone, and start and place their bets. And just walking around, everyone had good things to say about the betting process, and really seemed to enjoy the aspect of, "Hey, I could bet on whoever games I had picked," especially the last round whenever I picked the top two tables. People were enjoying picking who they thought was going to win out of that. So everyone really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there was
Awesome.
we'll get to the survey in a bit, but there was one really good comment that somebody made. They said, betting should just be cut in teeth, and I really like that. I think that makes sense. So I think we should
I think next year, if
Yeah.
we do that again, it's going to be just cutting. And
Yeah.
I kind of thought about that, but I know going into this year, I just want to make it simple and just have it be whatever teeth. But
Yeah.
cutting makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So yeah, we've got there's our high level of was fun to run the event. I agree with Jeff. It felt like there was a lot of things that had to happen in the background up before the event, but day of, once we got everything set up at the beginning of the morning, honestly, it was pretty straightforward. We're 2.5 years into the edition. I remember the first Smash and Bash we ran shortly after the start of the edition, where I was running from one table to the next. Day two, I learned how to play Flesh and Blood because there were that few rules questions, and I had nothing else to do. So,
Yeah.
props to everyone else playing the game. Y'all know your rules.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and did you get a lot of questions in general, or? I think I had
Nah,
maybe one I sent your way, and that was really it. Everything else was really simple.
I think I had almost as many questions that people had from other GTs on how I would rule things as I did for actual things that happened there. There were a few cases where I just happened to be near a table and someone had a rules question or someone wanted a quick, is this charge in? I had to be in the area.
Hmm.
Other than that, very, very little.
Cool. Good to know.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add, or are we good to start going into survey feedback?
I think we're good to go.
Yeah, let's do the survey.
All right. If I make this bigger, I can't actually. Oh, I can see chat. Perfect. All right. So the first big topic that we had related to the venue itself. For those of you who weren't there, we were at the Dragon's Lair here in Austin. We were able to fit 28 tables into the venue. So for a game store, that's very impressive to have that much available play space. And we really appreciate the accommodations they made for us, and basically freeing up all the card game space, all the miniatures game space, all the role play space, and just letting us use that for 2 days straight.
Yeah, shout out to the Dragon's Lair crew. They were all really great. That was awesome. Like it was everything. Like I said, everything was seamless. It was really great.
So, with that in mind, it looks like the attendees seem to agree with us. Did you like the venue? Straight up, yes. No detractors, 100% yes. We had a few more detailed questions about playing in a family friendly store. For the most part, no one had any real issues with it. About the only loss was that a lot of people like to have a couple drinks while they're playing, and that was simply not an option there.
Yeah, unfortunately. But hey, we had alcohol at Hop Dotty literally 20 feet from the front of the store. So
Yes, the bar was not a long walk, so
yeah,
that helped. We looked into did playing in an active retail space impact your weekend at all? Um, a couple people said they actually kind of enjoyed it. Um, we There was a little bit of it took up some space, or it gave us less space to play with, and for the most part, people just kind of said it didn't affect our event. There were definitely a few card gamers who got turned away. I remember that.
yeah,
Um,
they weren't happy, but sorry.
yeah. Um, Other than that, I don't think I remember anybody having any problems with the extra foot traffic. It was actually
Yeah,
kind of nice to have spectators a little bit.
yeah. There was a couple that said it was a little crowded, get it like difficult to move around at times, but I think in general, like that was very on off, and I think it was fun. And I know there was a
Yeah.
little bit of a trouble. Was a little bit of a problem with chairs up front, which we did get fixed once I noticed that. So yeah, I think that was okay.
Yes, that was a situation where I thought every table had a stool, and then once someone mentioned, it, I went up there and looked and said, "Oh, no, they don't."
Yeah.
Tons of chairs and backs. Just need to pull some of those up there. Would have been better if we could have had all the stools, so that they were more on level with the table. But other than that, no issues at all.
Hmm. Yeah, it was fun.
All right. Next question is actually about the size of the event. There's always a bit of a push and pull on how big Age of Sigmar events should be. There are people who prefer smaller, more intimate events. There are people who prefer um, uh, a GT be 32 people tops. And then there's the mindset of if it's not Adepticon or LVO, it needs to be bigger. So we got, that's all personal opinion. No problem with any of that. About 2/3 of people said that the size was great for them, and about a third said they prefer a larger venue. Nobody said that they wanted a smaller venue. So if we do anything bigger or if we do anything different, it would be a larger location. Um, I think that Jeff had already talked to some of the staff at Dragon's Lair, and they'd mentioned there might be a way to fit more tables in, but that is a down the road question.
Yeah, I mean, max we're looking at maybe 60 players will be max. Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do bigger and stuff like that, but the reality of the situation is real estate in Austin is insanely expensive, and we can't run a venue or can't run an event in a venue that wants 20K for the weekend, which is insane. But I mean, we'll look and we'll see. But for right now, I think Dragon's Lair will be it, at least for the short term.
Which is good because the next question is if we hosted Dragon's Lair again, would you come back? And again, everyone says whether or not they like the size, they'd be back.
Yep.
A couple other spots on venue related questions. Mostly cats, big fan. Lack of alcohol, not a fan. That's about it.
Yeah, we're pretty much down the middle on cats versus booze.
Hey,
which
it's
is
always
cool.
fun to see someone playing right next to them have a cat.
Yeah, and the cats broke nothing as far as I'm aware, which is great because we were a little bit nervous about that, but yeah, that all worked out really well.
Yes. All right. So I think that about covers it for the venue. Overall, popular. If there's anything that people had an issue, it was just lack of alcohol and size of the store, which neither of which we're going to be able to change. But it's good to know if we find a alternative cheap venue. For now, like Jeff said, looking like uh, Dragon Slayers did well for us, and probably going to be there next time.
Yep.
All right, let's go on to catering. So, for those who weren't here, we had one of the members of our club, Andrew, I believe, before he moved to Austin, ran a food truck. So, we had him cater lunch for us and just asked for service for 80. We had, what was it, 3-course barbecue meal with brisket, pork sliders, and
Sausage
Sausage.
links.
the sausage links. That's it. And then a side of potato salad. So first question is, do you like the idea of a catered lunch? Everyone likes a catered lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice to have that day because you'd have to go off site to go get lunch. You could just stay there.
Also, Asri, thank you for resubscribing.
Appreciate you. Yeah, I think one thing I would change, I think, with the barbecue is I think we would switch it to Sunday.
Yeah,
That and then cut that lunch to an hour. Because one thing that happened is a lot of people got done really early, and then we gave them an hour and a half lunch the first day. Because in previous GTs, it was like, hey, you have an hour and a half, figure out where you're gonna go. You have a little bit more time. This time it was I didn't realize. Oh, geez, we're giving them an hour and a half, and the food's right there. So yeah, people were sitting around for a bit, which a couple of people mentioned, but I mean, it was a big hangout, so it was fun. But I think what we would do next time is hour and a half lunch Saturday, cater the lunch Sunday with an hour lunch. I think that would work better.
Yeah, and there have also been a few comments both ways on that one. People saying that the extra time was great because they meant that they weren't rushed at all,
Hmm.
and a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, the round should have probably started sooner." So that is a divided response.
Hmm.
Good to know that there's both reactions there. I think getting things moving faster, as Jeff's pointed out, would be more popular on the second day. And the reason he had mentioned this previously was that it means people can actually get home sooner because people who are driving from out of town actually gain that time back at home. If it's day one, gaining an extra half hour just means you've got extra time at a hotel. It's not as exciting.
Yeah, that's fair too.
I mean, that was your point.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So next question is, were you satisfied with the amount of food received? No one said they were short on food, which no surprise there. Honestly, that was a lot of food.
Yeah.
everyone was either satisfied or said it was more than they could eat, or a few comments that they couldn't eat it at all. Having a vegetarian option might be a thing we look at next time, or having some sort of flag like that. But for a first dry run on did this work, the answer was yes, and we kind of know what to do for next time. Or at least we have things to look into for next time. Whether or not that's actually viable from a supply perspective, that's a different question.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We have a question about whether you had any dietary restrictions that prevented you from eating. Two people did, or two of our respondents did. That's unfortunate. We're sorry, and like we said, we're looking into what can we do for it next time.
Yeah.
And the next question is, of course, would you want the next one to feature a catered lunch? And unanimously, everyone wants lunch. Unanimously, everyone wants coffee and donuts on Sunday. So we may be looking at a situation where it is a basically Sunday, get to the event, and then yeah, as we can confirm, it was not a dry run. The meat was quite moist. Yeah, Andrew's cooking is excellent. We've he has treated us before at several terrain builders and other events like that, and we knew what we were getting. There's a reason we went with that.
Yeah, it was great.
So anyway, we may be looking at a situation where the last day for the next GT is just get to the venue, and we're here until awards are done, and then everyone can go straight home.
Yeah.
So any kind of meetups and stuff like that, we look at Saturday either for lunch or dinner, or just if you've got extra time on the way home and want to meet up for lunch or meet up for dinner before leaving, hey, that's always an option too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, and again, I think our next question is: would you like to see coffee and donuts on Sunday return? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Round Rock Donuts, I mean, people aren't going to say no. I mean, Slambo could give a shit about tacos, fine, whatever. We'll have that argument, but like when it comes to donuts, y'all have no chance. Sorry, you lose. Not even a question.
Yeah, having a nice, easy slam dunk answer right near us is an easy win. All right. Any other thoughts related to catering? Jeff, you want to go pull up any of the comments?
There we go. Yeah, everything looks like super solid. Some people said they needed gluten-free options. More Andrew meat. There was a comment about the long lunch on the day lunch isn't catered. Yeah, that makes sense. I get it. But yeah, breakfast tacos. Jesus. Yeah, no. But yeah, everything good there. Everything in line with kind of what we thought. So that's all the good stuff, and then we'll go ahead and get into the little more dicier divided comments here.
Yeah, here that was the easy stuff. Let's get into, as Jeff put it, things being a little bit more fractured.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the event going with straight wins and losses? Almost half the players just straight up liked it. And then we get a very, only 10% said they disliked it, but there's a very large striation of yes, but.
Mhm.
Couple no opinions. Said it really was a quarter say it wasn't a problem, but would have preferred just traditional scoring. A couple of responses of saying it actually helped resolve talk it out if people wanted to surrender. Um, I think these are basically write-in responses for those last three.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Oh yeah, and there are some notes about matchmaking being completely random, which is the next question we have. But getting paired down when it is a straight win loss doesn't mean you are the person who just barely lost playing against the person who just barely won. You may get a person who lost handily playing against someone who has been winning handily and just happens to have rolled to win, basically won the roll to pair down. One easy solution for this is actually to take a look at a straight power of two. If we could actually have 64 players, that should eliminate that problem completely until people start getting ties.
Yeah.
The easy answer is, well, let's just make sure no one gets paired down.
Yeah,
Of
and I
course,
mean, Go ahead.
That also then assumes that no one drops, and we have 64 for the whole time. So there's some assumptions there that may not be valid. So anyway, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, some arguments for this. I mean, Halo has talked about this quite a bit, and for me, like obviously didn't play in the event. I kind of like the idea for the talk it out part. Like, I think everybody got a little like didn't care about it and didn't track anything because we were getting ridiculous scores in there, and we didn't track ground strats where we should have been. That kind of got missed, and we couldn't go back and like float that in. So, but I mean, essentially the idea is like you win or you lose. At the end of the day, like you're not if there's two 5-0s like we had, you get two winners essentially. So that way, if you're a new player and you're playing at the event, you're not getting stomped because the really good player needs to score max points, so he's gonna like dumps through that player and make sure they get wrecked so he gets all his points. You're not going to get hosed if someone, I'm going to concede, and if you don't get max points, like all the points are messed up. Like end of the round doesn't get fuzzy and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, the random pairings is a problem. I mean, we did have a pretty significant pair up, pair down round two, which someone wasn't happy about, and I get it, and I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, dry run for this, I think we'll see what happens with scoring for fourth, but you know, like more than half of the people liked it, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Isaac, what do you think? You're pretty big into the whole scoring thing and the competitive side.
I think, I mean, random pairings and this go hand in hand because you can't not have random pair. Like, if you don't have random pairings, it kind of still pressures people to score higher because then
Yeah,
they want to not be paired down or like fight someone that's also one. So I think if it is just straight wins losses, just random pairing throughout makes sense.
yeah,
Um, but in terms of just win loss, I think it works really good. I know it's weird. I think it works really good the first like 3 rounds. And the last two, when people start to get more divided, it kind of makes sense to have scoring. That way, you start to get differentiated, like in terms of the better player, or not better players, but like these players are going to play against each other because they've scored high
mhm,
day one into day two. But
yeah,
that's also really hard to do from an event side. So I feel like going forward, wins loss can work. And I know like I was hesitant about seeing how it would work, and it worked better than I thought it was going to. So I think it works. It just needs to be um like a reminder to the players of, hey, you don't need to go through all this because I know that's what I was kind of do walking around. Is towards the end of some games, I'll walk up and they're trying to talk out like score, and I was like, hey, you just know who won. Like you can just put that in. And I know I was doing that throughout the event with a couple games.
yeah. There was a couple that I walked up to too, and they were trying to like, I don't know if it was 18-13 or I'm like, who won? He did. Oh, cool. Put that in. You're done.
Yeah,
Like it makes that part so much easier, and I get like when we get into a new edition and things like we're gonna need separation and stuff like that. I totally get that. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how fourth scores it. It seems like it's not gonna change, and it's gonna have to be more granular. But I mean, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to
yeah.
it.
I mean,
But
it really just depends on how they do it, but I think
yeah,
everything we've seen, scoring seems more important to fourth than it does third
yeah,
because of how they've implemented that into tactics in the game. So
hmm,
it kind of has to maybe be required
yeah,
if they're revolving the double turn around. Hey, you get points if you don't take it, but if you do take it, you're gonna lose points. So I feel like that's gonna kind of make points back into, hey, we need to keep track.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It does seem like it's gonna be more important. Um,
I actually look at it the other way around.
actually,
If you're looking at fourth edition saying there are ways where you can, by taking the double turn, kneecap your ability to get tournament points, you've now cost yourself something beyond just in this game. You've deliberately lost your tournament standing just because you used a core game mechanic. And that I actually think is a problem.
that's a really good point. Because yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
take
I
a
think
double
it
turn and
itself
you
is a problem, but
yeah
I think it's a problem that unfortunately is going to have to be tracked in a tournament.
Yeah. I think that I was actually more optimistic for random pairings and straight win loss before the event. I still think that it worked well, and I think that there is room for it, but there are some challenges, such as the pair up, pair down problem, that I had not seen coming. I actually don't have any problem at all with random pairings. I think there's always a tendency to not rock the boat and do what works. And there's always going to be if there is a tied vote on was this change a good idea, it probably was a decent change. And you have, I think more people are tendency to stay with what they're comfortable with than to look at than to try something new. So that may have been if we are getting a roughly even read on it, I lean slightly towards we should continue to investigate this, but it might not be a slam dunk.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree.
And Danimo makes a good point that the scoring for Texas Masters and ITC are not particularly compatible with pure win loss because that is all designed around placings top to bottom. What we ended up doing was breaking those down by soft scores. So we had a little bit of extra striation within that, but as far as tournament awards, it was pure wins. So I guess as a quick single bullet point after that little ramble of mine, I think that the community is divided on whether or not this is a good idea. My lean is still that it has potential, and we're going to need to see exactly how tournaments run in 4th edition to determine whether or not it remains a viable option, becomes a mandatory option, or becomes completely abandoned.
Yeah.
And to answer the question about the Masters ranking table being updated, I've actually pushed an updated table to the Masters Discord. There are a couple people with their cities that should probably be updated, but I do have final scores, barring someone finding out that there's an error in their particular entry.
Yeah, ours look good.
Sorry. So I think that's everything I've got to say on this. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I
I'm
don't
good.
think so.
Isaac? Yeah.
All right. So the TLDR has potential, not a sure shot. Worth more investigation. Possibly worth more looking into on the back end to how to deal with the pair up, pair down issue.
Yeah.
Sounds
All right, cool. Let's continue, Chairgrat.
All right. So, do you feel enough awards were given out at the event? No one had a problem with the number of awards. We had won too many awards. No one felt like we were short. And a comment that's always nice to take home some hardware, no matter how you performed. So, a note that more awards, good. Jeff, any comments?
No, I think we got it. I guess this is a good place to segue into this because one thing I did want to talk about is paint judging, and I'll kind of fold in display boards with this too. So, last few years at Smash, basically what we've done is we've broken paint up into player's choice and judge's choice. So basically, judges would pick their top 3 armies, players would pick their top 3 armies. First cut, when you put your models out, you do your paint, it's no display boards. Then after that, you put out your display boards. Getting into the display boards, why and why not? I mean, there's always been like this undercut from a lot of people, like myself included, that have always said, hey, if you have a good, like a decent display board and a decently painted army, you're going to place way better than if you didn't. Actually, the last 2 years, so this year, basically, the people that chose their armies and the judges all chose the same top 3. So everybody that got placed for 1 through 3 for judges' choice, those people picked. They were the first 3. They picked judges, and then players' choice went to the next 3 people. So, I mean, really, it like, and this happened basically both events. So pretty much, it looks like at least anecdotally, like in our little community, like display board really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so next year I'll probably just go ahead and like let people bring display boards because there wasn't like any of that like propping up. The other concept for me was if you paint, and I've always said this, and I'm sure Isaac and Matt, you've heard me say this a lot, but when you're painting for best painted army versus when you're painting for best competition, it's two different ways to do it. If you're painting for like the masses and you want to get best army, usually you do like flashier stuff to make your stuff look better, like brighter colors and certain things work. If you're doing like fine techniques and stuff like that, usually that stuff doesn't get noticed and get rewarded as much. And again, our community, not really, because the top three were the top three both times. So I don't know if it makes sense next year splitting, like having top three judges and top three players because they're all the same. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll do 3 awards from the judges, but we'll pick like best painted, best basing, or something. But we'll try to split that out a bit and make that different because it was just we were technically double awarding the same people, but with tie breaks and stuff like that, we broke it down. And then the display board thing, like I said, doesn't really matter. Like whoever had them and didn't, like all those votes and everything fell into the same spot. Matt, I know you've had discussions about display boards before. What do you feel? What do you think?
So first off, just to be clear, this is Army painting and Army voting, not Paint Masters.
Yeah, sorry.
That's a different topic entirely. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I think that my view is that since we are going for a 60-ish player event, which is not small, but is also not huge, the majority of our audience is actually from Texas and will be driving here. My number one complaint about having display boards be a factor in Army paint judging is for events that people have to travel for, because actually getting a display board onto a plane can be a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a huge preference either way. I do think that there have been in the past a drive to focus on the display board and large army presentation at the expense of individual model painting. There have been a few armies that have been very fixated on the conversions and then very light on the individual execution of those conversions. And this was kind of our look at that and say, those people should be rewarded because that is impressive work. But we want to make sure that they don't just completely shut out people who say, I want to have a GW model and paint the GW model as it came, and that's going to be the focus on what I'm doing here. I don't know if that's a slow shift in community sentiment, a shift in who brought different things because we said display boards won't be included for the first vote, or just a generalized this is the way it worked and it's entirely anecdotal evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a take from this what you will. We wanted to make sure that individual painting as a focus was not overshadowed, and straight and plain and simple, it was not. One other factor that I actually should point out, the community over time has, so Age of Sigmar painting has always been leaps and bounds ahead of anything I saw in 40K. But just the general quality of paint at events, especially for the people who are competing for best painted, has also steadily ratcheted up from event to event. We've gotten new painters into the community who have been extremely impressive, and just kind of a few people who have really taken special effort and gone to the next level. Props to all of y'all who have done that. I think that people with more experience in painting know better what to look for to say this is an impressive paint job, because when I was playing 40K and we just slapped base coats on and whatever Gale Force 9 basing material and called it good, I didn't know what really made a model pop. So there's something to be said for just as the player base gets better at painting, it also gets better at evaluating other people's painting as well.
That's a good point. Isaac, what do you think? I know you're not a super painter, but
I'm a super speed painter, but I'm not a
you,
painter. Um, yeah, I feel like just because of that, like I don't have a super preference. I know me going to an event, I'm someone that will never bring a display board 'cause I know
mhm,
I'm not going for paint. So
yeah,
like making it, like I feel like bringing a display board has never changed how I've voted on Army either. So I feel like seeing it first round or like whenever judge wise, which should be fine because the judges know what they're looking for. So it's not going to be the display board that puts them ahead of someone else.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where we are on that overall. That's an area that we're going to need to review basically, and maybe finding a way to keep judge painting involved, but having basically redundant awards isn't actually adding anything. Is basically our takeaway from the matter.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's get back to another hard question. After making an easy question hard because we detoured into a backstage problem. War Coda missions. We used the War Coda 5 missions from the War Coda pack that Tyler and the was it the whole Warhammer Weekly crew or just Tyler?
Tyler mostly.
Gotcha. So he put those together and they are available on. Do you have that website handy, Jeff?
I think it's just warcoder.com.
That's easy enough. And I don't surprised I forget it.
Let me double check.
So warcoda.com. Yeah, double check that one. If you want to go ahead and have a few alternate battle plans that are independent of the battle pack and you kind of slot into any season you want them to, it's a good chance to try something a little bit different. They play well. They're still 40K. They're still Age of Sigmar. Sorry, I'm talking about a different game a minute ago.
You're good.
They're still Age of Sigmar, and you're still playing the same infrastructure everyone has been playing all along. It's just a matter of seeing different missions, so getting to do something that you don't feel is quite so repetitive. Um, we decided to go ahead and run 5 of them for the GT, and we want to know what people thought of it. Half the responses just straight up said, "Take War Coda, no caveats, no qualification." A quarter almost said they would have preferred standard battle pack missions, and almost as many people said they didn't have a strong opinion either way. Uh, Someone had a specific mission they disliked, but otherwise it was fine. And a comment that maybe a little bit more playtesting with the missions, and they favored their army over others. It may have been a suggestion, and we get later when we get specific comments that may be related to just the collection of missions we chose. We didn't have anything that was just a direct 50% of the of 50% my territory, 50% your territory, and go for it. We didn't have any long table or hamburger deployments. It was all hot dog. Part of that was because we weren't 100% sure what kind of table space we would have and how playable those would be in a tournament format. Um, so with that concern in mind, it did skew which missions we chose, and then it turned out with the tables being interspersed the way they were, um, the the high tables at the front of the store would have been a bit of a problem for that, but the low tables at the back of the store would have worked great.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm kind of happy with what we picked, to be honest. I mean, we got what 75% saying it's okay or it's good or whatever. That's fine. I mean, I think
Yeah.
if we were like right by 4th edition and like out of the gate, we're running like active.
All right. Is this any better?
Robo.
We're still robos.
Apparently.
The clips that I hear from
Okay.
okay, cool. All right. We're hearing it's good. So we're going to keep going. Yeah, we basically got a 2-to-1 vote for versus against. I suspect that, as Jeff sounded like he was about to say, if we had done this right at the start of a GHB or right at the start of the edition, it would not be nearly as favorable. But the fact is that we're now, what, 8, 9 months? When did we get this GHB?
We're like 10 months in.
A month, yeah.
Yeah. So the current missions have gotten a little bit stale, and there are a lot of people who are ready for anything else. I think the biggest lesson here is we would all prefer Games Workshop kept that 6-month cadence instead of trying the 12-month cadence. It was fine for about the first 6 months of it. Less sold on the 6 months buy a new $50 book part of it, but new content every 6 months and a change in missions would probably be appreciated. As is, the big takeaway I have is that the War Code missions played well. It was a good change of pace when we needed it. No one's forcing you to use them or the other. Well, no one's forcing TOs to select either the battle pack or an alternative third party such as Warcoda. And remembering that we have alternatives on the line, one means that people get to play different stuff, and two means that Games Workshop actually needs to keep quality up, or the community will be forced to take their job from them, and we will take care of it.
Yep.
And Aventine, yes, 12-month GHB, so like the Andorian Locust thing, would be a good pairing with a 6-month mission download FAQ. That would be a ideal solution where we still have something new coming, and we have a 1-year long. Here's the large module, and then the 6-month. Here's the small module. Now, if they stick with this whole pick and choose modularity that they've talked about for 4th edition, maybe we'll see more rules using that, but we'll see what they actually go ahead and do. And again, if they're going to say all our rules are push and pop, don't forget that there are third-party alternatives to go ahead and grab and say, well, instead of saying yes or no for this rule, what if we went with the third-party alternative as a third option? So I think there's my long-winded ramble on Warcoda. I enjoyed picking missions for it. I think that it was a nice change of pace. I think it was doubly well received because of it being so late into the edition. I don't know what this feedback looks like if we try to do something like this early into 4th edition, which would be when the next Smash and Bash is going to be. We'll probably just use core missions for that because, well, Warcoda missions won't translate to 4th edition anyway. And I don't think Tyler will have a new mission ready for that, new mission pack ready by November. He might, I don't know.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, we'll be pumped into the new edition and wanting to play that. I mean, one other thing I'll say too is modularity or not, like one, because remember we did look at. Let's talk about what we looked at. We looked at what's that book called? Season of War, and we're like, hey, we're gonna do a Seasons of War GT, and it'll be great. And then me and Matt look at like the first like 2 rules for terrain, and we're like, oh my god, we can't do this.
Not Seasons of War, Thondia.
Yeah, it is Seasons of War though.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Whenever someone talks about Season of War, I think of the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Wait, that's Blades of Corn. Wrong book.
They may have also called it Seasons of War, but
yeah,
either way, the
Season of War Thondia. But yeah.
Got it. Either way, we looked at Thondia as another alternative. Yeah, as Jeff was saying, we got like we got about 2 rules into it and said, yeah, this isn't going to work. We looked at an alternative of trying to use a battle pack that Jeff had written for a local campaign for playing in Ulgu. And the issue we ran into there is that all of the list submission is done through apps that assume you are in basically the standard GHB. We can't even go back to previous GHBs to include things like Hunters of the Heartland because that's all gone from the app. So we'd have had some major hurdles for players submitting lists if we tried to use anything other than current GHB or Pitched Battle or Thondia. So anything that was related to list design had to fall into one of those three buckets. Otherwise, we're looking at roll your own for lists, which is just going to be miserable for us to review and make sure that they're correct.
Yeah. So I think I like the modularity idea. Like, I don't know how much power that gives TOs, because if we're stuck with that same thing, and if we're not like Holy Havoc or Holy Wars where they just gut everything and that's what you expect going there, it still makes it really difficult for TOs to do what they want to do. So when we looked at it, we're like, the only thing we can really change is we'll do current GHB, and then we'll just run different missions. So that's where we landed. But yeah, it's unfortunately it's not easy to just do what you want to do, but it worked out. It was fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought it worked
I
good.
think
Yeah,
okay.
Scott, what's up? What'd you think?
I thought it worked good. I liked a lot of the missions. I know a lot of people had questions about the last one. I feel like the most.
God,
That was the only one that people were like, "How does this work?"
I love that mission so much too. That is my absolute favorite mission.
But I think overall it was more positive feedback than negative about those missions.
Yeah, that mission really makes you think about what's going on and how to play it. Me and Carlson got in a really big, long talk about it, about why you do things a certain way, how it works. It was really cool. Yeah, love Light and Shadow. I know a lot of people don't, but yeah, you need to play that a couple times. But yeah, it's rough.
All right. So I think the big takeaway from that is start of edition GT. We will probably be using a core battle pack, but it's definitely something that was fairly well received. And once Tyler's had a chance to update War Code for the next edition, and we've gotten a little bit further into the edition to see what the strengths and weaknesses of fourth edition are as a community, that might be something we take a look at, not for Smash and Mash 4, but possibly for Smash and Mash 5.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Next up, charity raffle. Did you participate in the charity raffle? 2/3 of the respondents did. And then, how do you feel about the painted raffle armies? Not that the artist has already said something in chat here, so we know he's listening. But the general, the the responses, no one disliked them, so that's a win already. One person didn't look at them. We had two that were okay, and then everything else was good to great. So thank you to Chris Long for painting our armies and taking care of the raffle armies. They were well received. And for anyone who didn't go to the event, what we did for our charity raffle is that we took three Vanguard battle forces and commissioned someone to paint them so that we could raffle off a three different painted Vanguard forces.
Yeah, well, Spearhead actually, and they're so basically. I mean, even Vanguard will be ready for fourth, but essentially, the three people that walked away with those can play Spearhead with a painted army the day that it launches, which I thought was really cool. And
You're
then
ready
we
for
did,
Sig Mystery.
yeah, and we did raise over $1,000 for charity, so that was great. So we appreciate everybody helping out the puppers. That was awesome.
As far as suggestions for other raffle prizes, painting supplies or hobby supplies, ticket to next year event, that's something that we could possibly look at. FOMO Army box from sometime in the past year. So something that's not available in stores anymore. But if we plan ahead, we could snag it before it becomes unavailable. And of course, the suggestion to just raffle off an entire cat.
You know what was really funny? I could not find a mint Dominion box because I'm like, we have to give away a Dominion box. Could not find a
Right?
mint Dominion box. I was like, this is just wrong.
You just don't feel like you're an actual GT until you've handed away Dominion boxes that no one could sell.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We also have a note of having other payment options. I don't know what else we can do to actually control that. Um, uh, a note of someone being about raffled out. I'm not keen on raffles being tied to events. Um, and maybe looking at more human charity. So we have a couple other responses there and some feedback to look at for next time. But yeah, we have once again. It seems like that was fairly well received, and we have some things to consider for ways to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, payment options, I will not get into the nightmare that Venmo has caused me with trying to get people paid and stuff, because they will not let me make any payments out of my account for whatever reason. So yeah, payment options, I don't know. Like we'll have to look at it and see. But thinking that, hey, you're a registered LLC and you have a business bank account and you can just use Venmo and it's great and it's really easy and it works. They After I donated to the charity and tried to pay everything else off through Venmo, they just locked my account, won't let me pay anything. So can't tell me why, don't know what the deal is, but yeah, payment is a sticking spot for me. But we'll see what we can do. We'll look into it.
Yeah, I knew that you'd mentioned that as a issue after the fact. So that's a little bit of what's going on in the back end is that we'll look into it, but right now the options we have are already giving us trouble. So adding more may be hard.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any other comments on the raffle? Okay. Oh, and again, for anyone who's listening or coming back to look at this later, Forgotten Friends was the name of the charity we donated to. It is a no-kill pet shelter here in Austin.
Yep.
All right. So let's get to Paint Masters, which is different from Army voting. This is just people submitting individual models for judging by the artists and judge team in the back room, basically. So, first question here is: did you participate in Paint Masters? Only a quarter of respondents participated in it. The other three quarters, for whatever reason, chose not to. And then we have a question of: if you didn't participate, why not? Jeff, I feel like this is more as the artist in the team.
Yeah.
This is basically your question, so I'm going to step back a little bit. I've had my rambles on gameplay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, painting, I get it. Like a lot of people either they aren't big into painting, they paint to play. They don't feel like they're great at painting, as we could look at most of these comments here. They don't have time to focus on it, stuff like that. I get it. I mean, I totally understand. I mean, one thing I did think about was I did like when we did Aspirant the first time we did Smash and Bash. Basically, was you don't have to pay, you can enter for free. If anybody ever won an award at any painting event, they can't enter. I mean, of course, it's the honor system and stuff like that, but they could just enter and get rewarded and recognized for putting in their stuff. And just a lot of people didn't, which was a bit of a surprise. But I get it. I mean, not everybody's an artist, not everybody's a painter, not everybody likes people writing feedback on their stuff. So, so yeah, I totally understand. Um, but yeah, so next year, I mean, not sure what we'll do with the aspirant thing. We'll figure that out. I mean, as an artist, I love seeing people's miniatures. I love looking at all that stuff. So we will, we'll definitely have a paint masters again. But I probably the way it is right now, I probably won't do the aspirant category just because there wasn't a lot of entries into that category. We'll probably make that unit or something like that. But yeah, wish people would enter, but I get it. Not everybody likes that kind of thing. Not everybody's an artist. So yeah. I think that's pretty much it for paint. For paint
Couple
masters.
couple
Yeah.
other suggestions for things to change. Having it be in the back room there, yes, moving it out someplace more prominent would be good, at least for between rounds, as was we ended up kind of using that as a combination judges area and storage.
Hmm.
If there's a way that we could turn that into play space and have someplace else for judges area slash storage, that would work. and we could then move the paint judging up front. So that's something to look at for next year as a logistical item.
Yeah.
So I think that does about cover it for painting.
Yeah, and I mean there are people that said, hey, like have it ready like way ahead, like announce that way ahead of time so we can actually take time and paint something cool. That's definitely a good idea. I mean, we'll look at that for sure. And oils are cheating, but not really. No, oils are absolutely cheating. I'm gonna start painting with oils because damn, those oil painted models look great. But yeah.
Yeah.
How's there anything about painting besides I paint fast?
Not really. I know I entered Aspirant last year, but I was going to do it this year, but I forgot my model.
Okay.
But other than that, not really. I'm not really a big
I know.
painter, so.
I'm picking on you.
All right. So with Jeff having handled the painting questions, let's get to the guy who was in charge of the betting all weekend. First question is, did you participate in the TEEF minigame? 90% of respondents said yes. 10% no, or 9% no. The two people who said no either just didn't feel like keeping track of extra stuff. Actually, that's both of their reasons. Just they didn't want to keep track of extra stuff. The game had enough for them already.
Which I understand. And like when we were designing it, I know not everyone was going to participate. It was definitely encouraged. And the ones who did do it really had a fun time with it. But I understand for someone, especially if it's their first GT or something, that'd be a lot to keep track of. So that's why it's definitely optional. And I don't know, not much more to add to that.
It is nice to see, again, of the 22 replies we got, 20 people saying yes, they participated in it. There was definitely a lot of energy in the room whenever I saw people trying to do anything with the TEEF or come back and make trades or claim the TEEF for the game. It definitely seemed to be something that the people who liked it really liked it.
Oh,
Yeah,
the amount of people that looked up to me and they're like, "Where's Isaac, man? I got to get my bet in. What's going on?" I'm like, he's over there. He's coming around. I'm like,
yeah.
he's
And
only
I would
one
walk
guy.
around the tables and someone would be like, would just walk up from the table and find where I was at to go. And then by the time I get to their table, they'd be like, here you go. And I could just move on.
Yeah.
So I know I had over 50% bet every round, with the most being rounds 5 and 1. But I think it really helped round 1. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm giving this to you for free, but you have to bet it." So that got a lot of people like going.
Nice.
First one's free. I love it.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. Like Vault Wars did like they didn't do it the year I went, but the year before I went, they did what was it? It was like a key, something about keys. They did like a mini game similar, and it's kind of where I got the idea for something like this. I think it's cool. I really enjoy it. Cutting all the teeth and stringing all the teeth and doing all that, it's a hell of a lot of work. So I'm glad people enjoy it because it takes us a
Yeah.
really long time to put that all
Yeah.
together. That is not
Th-
an easy thing to do.
Thanks to the BattleWorks guys for getting all those printed up and laser cut for us. And I know Brian was doing a lot of getting the rings put on the teeth.
Yeah.
And all of
Yeah.
there's a lot of back end stuff that had to go into it just as far as the physical components. And thanks again, Isaac and Brian, for coming up with rules. And several of other people I saw chime in on that discussion as well.
Yeah. And thanks to Britt. Yeah, it was Isaac and Brian did all the teeth. Like I mean I helped out with the rules and stuff, but it was primarily they were driving all that. And then
Yeah.
it was we got Lexi and Joe who did all the cutting, and then Brian again and Britt like put all those rings on, and it was freaking rings. And we had a little bit of a crisis. We got like a different kind of ring that didn't work, and last minute Brian had to buy rings and switched them out, but luckily all that worked out, and yeah, it was fine. But yeah, really dig the teeth. Oh yeah, I guess we got to talk about the whole Slambo thing, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just say real quick. Generally, people were satisfied with the quality of the teeth, so good job everyone who put that work in to make that happen. And then, yes, the next question after that is, how do you feel about Slambo winning by being sneaky kid?
Yeah.
So we do have about a 3-to-1 split on it was funny, that's fine, and it wasn't fair, we should have done something about it. Then you get several different comments about either not participating or don't have a strong opinion, or write-in comments about basically all three write-in comments are in favor of yeah they can do that. So really this is more of a closer to 4-to-1 in favor of yeah that's fine. As Spencer mentioned while he was handing out that award, they have won an award. They have won a ruling that will prevent this from happening in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, I know when I was writing out everyone's numbers, it was all like max for like 120, 140 for like combined teeth. And then when they came up, they're like, "Oh, we have like 300 something." I was like, "No, there's no way one person got that many because you can't earn that much through betting."
Yeah. So the general overall is yeah, all right, we should definitely be ready for that. We're cool with having it worked out this way and the way it went. But in the future, we're going to try to come up with something to prevent that. We'll see what other shenanigans people can come with to get around the rules. But for now, we're going to at least close that loophole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think going forward still too, having all the betting like through us worked out really well because then you don't have everyone like potentially just spiking at the end of the round, end of the tournament. We're like, oh look, I have all these teeth, so that way I like that was why the betting went up progressively. It wasn't just hey, you bet all your teeth every time. That way, it wasn't like okay, the only way you can win is by betting. I know the person who won brutal only bet like 10, 20 teeth, so you could still do it without betting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And overall, betting was a very popular part of the event. 77% liked it, 9% didn't, and only about 13% had no strong opinion on it or didn't participate. So for people who had an opinion, we're looking at what 8-to-1 about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll call that one a win.
Yeah, that was our highest rated thing last year, and yeah, it was pretty good. I'm really happy with how that worked out.
All right. So once again, now that we've talked about it and gone through the feedback, for anyone who wasn't at Smash and Bash, we had a system where you could earn teeth as a mini game, either by killing heroes, having heroes kill stuff, casting spells with an unmodified 12, little things that would accumulate teeth of some as basically a MacGuffin that you could have. And you could then gamble those on other games to see who would win and lose, and you would get paid out accordingly. We know there's an ad break, which means that the people who need this explanation are watching ads and therefore don't get this explanation. Awesome timing.
Oh shit.
we know it's random, but still, oh well.
Ads are a scourge on this world, but yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, couple of notes on changing things so that maybe next year is cunning teeth only for gambling. Oh, and by the way, I think Isaac, I'd heard you'd mentioned that the house actually came out ahead on bet.
Yeah, there's only of the 5 rounds, 3 of the rounds the house won, 2 of the rounds the house lost, but the first round, the third round, and the fifth round the house all won.
That's great. It doesn't actually cost us anything because we quite literally print them, but it's just kind of an interesting little anecdote of oh okay well technically we won.
Yeah,
And now that the ad break's over, short version of teeth bonus points for doing things like killing heroes, killing units, doing large amounts of damage with a single activation, rolling box cars, etc. They gave you teeth that you could then wager on other games and either win or lose some teeth, and then at the end of the tournament we gave out an award for the teeth taker who had the most of each type of tooth.
Yeah, and then we did have agendas too. Bosses agendas. There was 8 different things you can do. You pick one before your game. I'm gonna try to do this thing. If I do it, I get 3 teeth of my choice.
Yep.
So
Yes, and you could not bet all your teeth every game. Irish Warlord. There are some responses talking about it. Um, but generally, the idea is that there was an escalating capability to bet it. Um, you or to bet them, so you did have a limit on how much you could throw
Yeah.
in.
So like day one is all like you can bet 10 teeth per game. That way it starts off small. I don't expect people have that many teeth. Game four was 25 and the last game was 50. But it was really only the last game when you could bet like anything that could like really push you over the edge of someone who wasn't betting. Um, and kind of like I said, most people that bet that round did not get their money back. So it was about 40%. I guess not most, but it was about 40% who did and 60% that didn't.
Nice. All right. A couple other notes on other thoughts related to teeth. Does feel a little bit win more. True. But on the other hand, as far as the general tournament, it doesn't affect the actual tournament itself at all. The win more comments probably related to betting.
Yeah.
A couple nods for Isaac saying that was a huge part of the fun. So thanks for being on the show, Isaac. You did a great job. A lot of people gave you props for that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed doing that. And it seemed like everyone really had a good time. I think next year, maybe I know one of the comments was maybe to have it be on paper. I might do that. That way it's just easy. 'Cause I can give a slip and people can come to me instead of me having to go around to everyone. And just pass it out and collect them.
that's a good idea. We can make a
Might be a way to create a better paper trail to avoid the surprise shuffle of everyone handing teeth to somebody else.
yeah, like hey, we got 376.
Let's see the receipt.
Yeah.
All right. Some miscellaneous questions. So with the teeth event, the teeth minigame taken care of. First question is on ticket price. We ended up running a thin margin, which we were probably one giant. We were probably one mishap away from this turning into a loss lead. Loss leader is probably the wrong word, but basically having to pay out of pockets to put in the effort to run the event. So we're looking at, is this a fair price for the event, and what else can we do on that front? We're okay. We did. I think Jeff, you said we did not take a loss in the end, right?
We did not. Yeah, we're okay.
Good. But having a little bit of a buffer so that we're not sweating the entire time we're there would be good.
Yeah, yeah. Having a better idea of what we're spending when you go out and pick up, $150 worth of donuts and all that, and $100 worth of coffee. Yeah, we need to be a little bit more careful with how we do all that stuff. But yeah, luckily it worked out. It's fine, and not like we're looking to like drastically increase prices and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do now that we're looking at it to fix things and get things done cheaper and stuff like that. So I shouldn't say
Gotcha.
cheaper, more cost effective ways to do things is what I should say.
Yes. We're looking at more than half the people say $80 felt like a fair price for the event. Ticket price this year was
70,
65.
75.
What was 75? Okay. So looking at people saying a little bit more would be reasonable,
Hmm.
more so than a little bit less.
Yeah.
Good to know. Questions on door prizes. They were generally popular with people saying that they like random prizes. Um, a couple people saying they prefer raffles and prize support. So a little bit of a split response, but seemed to generally be raffles that just having door prizes were popular. Um, uh, if we had to change things, most people basically saying keep it about as is, and definitely don't put prize support on teeth other than trophies. Jeff, any thoughts?
Yeah, it does all make sense. I mean, I wasn't really sure where, like, I know, like, we do the 4 GTs a year. There's always a raffle. Some people like raffles, some people don't like raffles. I mean, I kind of go, I'll donate a lot at one and then not much at the next. It just depends. Depends on where I'm at financially and stuff like that. So I get the whole raffle thing because yeah, a lot of it is raffles, especially in Texas.
Yes.
Door prizes. I mean, yeah, it's it's a little weird because it's like, are we interrupting games because everybody like just stops and is like, what's going on? So, but yeah, I mean, they're popular. We'll figure a way to make them work. Um, yeah.
I think one thing we could look at is that I definitely like doing them over time across the duration of the event
Mhm.
rather than all at once at the end.
Yeah.
I think maybe as a good check for who's back from lunch on time, that would be, or who's ready to go for their game. Maybe that's the window to do it. Is go ahead and put those up, do some raffles or not raffles, but some door prizes while we are getting things finalized and getting pairings put up. And when
Yeah.
we're done with the door prizes, then we post pairings. Everyone go to their table, and that way everyone can kind of see who won what and be all in one spot rather than busy with their game.
Yeah. I think we started it like kind of quiet. We just kind of like walk up and be like, "Hey, you want a prize?" And then we kind of got progressively louder as we went. So, but yeah, that's a really good idea. As people are waiting around for us to do stuff, we just give them things. I like that.
Always a good
That makes
plan.
that makes sense.
All right, so that takes care of the door prizes questions. Were you happy with the terrain? General responses, it was good. A couple other comments about one person saying it could have been better. Most tables were good, but lack of consistency. Few people said it was great. That may have just been a function of what part of the store did you end up playing in all day. Um, a lot of this terrain, as mentioned, was basically all of this terrain was loaned to us to use and donated. So thank you again, everyone who let us use your terrain to put on an event. The general community consensus is that this is good terrain, and we appreciate you guys bringing out stuff that was both good to look at and playable for the event that we ran on.
Table 26 was that the giant?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that was too big to play on. Yeah, that was yeah. We'll fix that one next year. The giant. Did you see that, Matt? That was the ones that Harrison did
Yes.
or Adam did. The giant. Yeah, yeah, it was a little big. Yeah, we'll fix that next year. Don't worry.
Yes. The one with the giant the azurite vaults glued to each other.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I remember that one.
yeah. The one that Spencer was using as a laptop stand at one point, which was really funny.
All right. So favorite things about Smash and Bash 3. A lot of praise on various topics, everything from the food, the teeth, just getting to hang out with people, the overall environment, everything about the event. Um, I think a lot of props go to, again, Isaac for the teeth and the way he handled betting. A lot of props go to Andrew and the food. Yeah, basically a lot of it felt good to look and say, all right, things we did right. Um, uh, even a quick nod to smaller environment, not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I was talking to Shung about this a little bit. Um, he did say that majority of the GTs like over in the UK and stuff like that are like 50, 60 person events, which I knew that, but totally forgot about that. So, I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, right? People want to do things bigger, but I don't know. I kind of like the size that we had. Like if we were bigger than what we were, there was logistically no way for us to do a lot of the things that we do. Like serving food to all those people, making teeth for 20, 30, like making the teeth that we did was a nightmare. There was a lot of work by those guys. I really appreciate that. Doing coffee and donuts in the morning wouldn't be feasible. So like a lot of the things that we did, we were able to do because of the scope and the size that it was. Like if we would add even 20 more people, like you started getting to the point of, well, we how are we gonna like fit like logistically how are we gonna get this much more food and all this other stuff. So um
Yeah, there are limitations to the logistics of scaling that we have, basically.
yeah, yeah. And like, a lot of events that get bigger that you always hear about, like it was a great event when it was small and it was more intimate and stuff like that. You know, I
Yes.
I
And
was kind of on the like on the end of like I want 100 people, but like after this, like I'm happy with like 55, 60 people. I think it works great.
And to your point about the UK, I think that pre-COVID and shortly after COVID, we were actually just watching the AOS Stats Center that the Honest Wargamer puts on. We were seeing a lot of 30 to 40 player GTs. Getting up to 50, 60 is actually them getting bigger. So I don't think that this is atypical at all. It's
Mm.
just a question of how can you do it so that it is not an expense for the people running it, because it's a lot of work. Having to pay out of your pocket for a lot of work is a good way to not have that turn happen again.
Yeah,
Being able to fit into a game store and pay game store rates to get the event going is far more approachable.
yeah.
All right, so what was your least favorite thing about Smash and Bash is the next question. And this gets into, this is really the where do we need to improve for next year? What can we control to make this a better event going forward? And we have a few things that we cannot control: the rain, waiting for rounds to finish. Again, that's going to be a divided issue, and I totally understand that. There are people who are bored because they have to sit around and wait, and there are people who appreciate having the longer games. So there's going to be someone who enjoys that and someone who is frustrated by that no matter what time you pick. But it's good to know that that's a thing to at least look at as not being a guaranteed win. Um, we knew that mission selection and battle points not mattering were going to be a concern. Apparently, someone got put on the same table over and over again. That's something to keep an eye on. Um,
Yeah, that's totally random. That's kind of another reason why I do like random tables, is to make sure that people aren't, if you're a consistent 3-2 player or whatever, you're in like the 3-2 zone, and then you're in the,
Oh, they
you know,
were saying they wanted to be on table 26 every game.
oh, suck it, Dylan. Sorry.
some comments at the venue got a little crowded. One person disliked Light and Shadow. Still a vote against Mystical Terrain. That will be a very different thing next edition anyway. So not sure we have to change too much on that front, but good to know.
Yep.
And the fact that we were all too busy running the event to actually play in it. And a few comments of no alcohol. A couple things about ways we could change the teeth mini game. But overall, nothing too harsh here. A couple things to look at as ways we could improve the event. Uh, Main thing that we see more than once being comments about the decision to use not use battle points, basically the
Yeah,
pure one loss.
yeah,
Again, we've already kind of covered that earlier in the review. Um, we know that we knew going in that that was not going to be universally popular. We didn't know where it would land. I think that in general, the War Coda call was more popular than the pure win loss call. And I think both of those are going to be a thing where we need to step back and look at it in light of fourth edition once we have a new rule set for the new edition.
yep. That's a cool idea. Big demo table
Yeah.
set per foot traffic. Get a feel for a game. I mean, it's hard to have a demo table let people demo the game and play, but like a big QR code for our Discord absolutely needs to be displayed.
Yes, that I agree. We had a couple people ask to be walked through how to be added to Discord. So
Oh, really?
that was definitely a thing
Yeah,
that came. I
I have
know
a
at least
couple
one guy.
people. I
Okay.
put a couple people on that we can.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. And I mean, honestly, like a demo table next year with Spearhead, that's not a bad idea. That's probably pretty easy to do. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. That's a good idea.
If
And
we
I
end up
mean,
in the same spot where there's too many people on hand on the side and not enough to do, that's something to do.
yeah.
All right. And again, a note to actually consider chess clocks as at least an option to provide. We didn't have any on hand for that game, or for that event, but that might be something to look at. It's going to depend how time works out in AOS 4. Every edition Games Workshop said we're looking into making sure the game plays faster, and third edition 100% did not play faster. So
No.
we'll see if it's a problem next edition or not.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem has been battle tactics, and kind of the problem that I'm looking at. I think we're all looking at is so they're kind of more important, and scoring is more important. So, like making the game faster. I mean, sure, we got 3-inch ranges, pile-ins are quicker, all that stuff, but like you're not asking every round, "Hey, do you want to redeploy? Hey, do you want to redeploy? Hey, do you want to redeploy?" So that's faster, but I don't know, like the big meat and potatoes of the game is battle tactics. And the way that's set, I don't know. I think we'll see. I hope it's faster, but who knows?
Yeah, I think that's going to be very much once we have the whole rules in front of us, we can make some decisions on that and we'll play from there.
Yeah.
And then are you coming back? Plan to come back next year? We have 90% yes and two maybes. So we'll see what schedule we end up with and how much space we have. And if some of those concerns can be addressed, or maybe some of the decisions we've made, such as the infrastructure of win loss, or what's it called, using non-standard missions, that may be pushing some people away. Those are things to look at. I think that for a fresh edition tournament, we'll be running this as close to out of the book as possible. I mentioned several times that we had almost no rules questions, and everyone's very familiar with the edition at this point. That won't be the case going into a fresh edition. So the less that we can throw people as ways to change the meta or ways to change the status quo, we're going to be looking at that direction, just because we need to learn the status quo before we learn what needs to be changed. Don't just start fixing things without understanding what's broken first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the end of our questionnaire. And I think we kind of did an overall at the start of this. Jeff, Isaac, do you all have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
it ran really well, and all parts were pretty much like positive outlooks on across the board. So
yeah. Anything in chat? Anybody have any questions? Anything we did not cover? I mean, as far as next year's event goes, I'll just start there. If we get any questions that come in, Dragons Lair really liked having us there. They were extremely happy that we were there. They were great. We're looking at probably November, and we'll be at Dragons Lair again. Because we're switching our slot with Slambo, because it just really Slambo has the space and the dedicated game store that they can have events at whenever. So yeah, we're looking at Dragons Lair again this year in November, and we didn't use the back room, and I think next time we're gonna stream, so it should be really fun.
Yeah. And yes, now that we actually have the option to use Dragon's Lair, we have a little bit more flexibility than we did before. It does limit how much we can grow the event, though, as Jeff, you've already pointed out. Maybe staying in the 50, 60 player range isn't even a bad thing. That may be desirable. It gives us some options to do some of the things like catering an event that we otherwise would lose scale on. And I think the only other thing I've got is to say, once again, thank you to everyone who helped out to make this happen, either with preparing the event, planning the event, with being available, even if it was just to run gopher tasks, like several people from our club did. All the work that went in behind the scenes, the upfront people who like Spencer making announcements so that we don't have to. Isaac being our book rot and just absolutely killing it. Again, everybody who let us borrow terrain, and Dragon's Lair for letting us run our event.
Yeah, it was great.
And with that, I think I'm out of stuff to talk about.
More love for Andrew. Yeah, definitely more love for Andrew. The food
Yes,
was amazing.
big props for Andrew. I keep saying the guy who catered, like he's not just part of our club that helped us make this happen.
Yeah, no, he was awesome. And yeah, that was That was probably some of the best park barbecue I've ever had. That was really good. Brisket was really good. It was all really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll probably cater again. And Andrew would like to do it, so we'll see.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you everyone for watching, and anybody who watches it back later. Appreciate the view and the attention.
Ooh, two
Hope
things.
we've.
Two
Yeah,
things.
go for it, Jeff.
Sorry. Pics from the event. I have them on the camera. I will get them up. We did talk about giving out two $25 gift certs codes for battleworks.com. I'll get both of those things up on the Smash Discord. I'll at everybody when that stuff is up there. And then I still need to write up not write up, but I still need to like copy over the written paint feedback for the aspirant category and give that out to those folks. So did not forget about all that stuff. I needed a little bit of downtime after everything, but I'll have all that up on the Discord. Let's say either tomorrow or Thursday. What's today? Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, either tomorrow or Thursday. I'll have all that done. So I'm still wrestling with Venmo and trying to get everybody paid that I owe money to. So, but yeah, I'll have everything up by Thursday, and I will at all when we do. But yeah, that was it for me. Sorry.
All right, no
check us
problem.
out.
Jeff, thank you for all the work you've done for this. Thanks everybody for watching. Y'all have a good night. And Isaac, thanks again for being on. And the work is book grind.
Yep. It was fun.
Thanks, Isaac. You're the best.
Good night, everybody.